Welcome to this review of the Headphone D1 by Hedd Audio. Now, I had heard of Hedd Audio, but largely from friends and colleagues in the studio and music production world, because they make fantastic studio monitors. So when I found out they're bringing out a headphone that was really consumer focused in the form of the D1, I was really eager to get my hands on them. So let's check them out. My name's Tim Hancock and I'm a contributor for AVForums. Hedd Audio is a really interesting brand. Hedd stands for Heinz Electrodynamic Design, and by the standards of some of the hi-fi brands that we review here on AVForums, they're a relative newcomer. They were founded 10 years ago in Berlin, Germany by Klaus Heinz and his son Frederick Knopp. Now, that may sound like a relatively new brand, but Klaus Heinz is actually a physicist that's been studying sound and acoustics for over 5 decades. And I can't do justice to all of his work here. Suffice to say that after establishing and working at the brand Adam Audio, and at the age of 68, he founded Hedd Audio alongside his son, who is actually a PhD in musicology and is an experienced sound engineer himself. So there's a lot of pedigree in this brand. If you take a look at any of Hedd Audio's studio monitors, you'll notice they all have an AMT or air motion transducer. And that's because Klaus Heinz spent a lot of time perfecting that tweeter driver. Now, we see an AMT across other brands in the market such as Wharfedale and Monitor Audio. But in 2020, interestingly, in a world's first, Hedd placed an AMT in their Headphone product. So they have made headphones before, and that one retails for around £1,500. So to now see this really knowledgeable, full of pedigree brand make a headphone around £600, which is a little bit more temperate, is really interesting. Before telling you what the Headphone D1 can do, it's worth telling you what they don't do. So there is no Bluetooth here, there is no app, there's no noise cancelling of any persuasion, and there is no microphone. These are an open back wired set of headphones that are best enjoyed indoors unless you want to annoy everybody around you. Now, I mentioned that in 2020 the headphone was a world's first. Well, seemingly not content with that, Hedd Audio have actually doubled their tally with the D1, because the Headphone D1 is the world's first headphone to include TPC or thin ply carbon. Now, bear with me here. I am no engineer, but this is what I can gather. It's ultra thin layers of carbon that are basically aligned and bonded together in a very specific way. The end result is that you've got a really stiff material that's really low mass and density. And the other thing that it seemingly you're able to do is engineer that diaphragm to do exactly what it is you need it to do. Now, Hedd Audio are saying that they've done that in such a way that it means that you need far less damping material around the diaphragm. So you need less stuff to make the driver do what it's meant to do. And I was thinking, where have I seen this before? And I did a quick check and confirmed, yeah, it was with Perliston Audio. Now, Perliston Audio also use TPC, but this is the world's first headphone to include this futuristic material. Now, in the press materials, it's very interesting, but they say that this thin ply carbon is also found in an F1 chassis and a NASA spaceship called Ingenuity, which is kind of a very cool talking point. The end result of all this technology, though, is that Hedd are promising a much cleaner sound. The Headphone D1s ship with a hard shell type of case for travelling. They'll certainly keep them protected on your journeys. They also come with a 2-meter cable which has 2 single 3.5mm connectors for each the right and the left, and that terminates together into one 3.5mm connection. And that also ships with a 6.35mm adapter for the larger headphone socket. Now, I found that cable a little bit in between, At 2 meters it's kind of too long when you're sat at a desk and your source is quite close, and then it wasn't long enough to stretch across the room to an amplifier if you were going to use them that way. So that's just a slight niggle. The build quality general of the D1s is excellent. I think it's of a really high standard. But there's nothing showy about the design of these headphones. I say that in contrast to something like a Focal. Anything from Focal's range has got a real statement. These don't do that, they don't scream from the shelf. I suspect that Hedd have put their attentions elsewhere with these headphones. Now the D1s are a consumer level focused product, and one of the key specifications supporting that is the fact that they're 32 ohm and 100 dB sensitivity, so relatively easy to drive load. So I tried them out with a range of sources and amplifiers. I started at the entry level by plugging them straight into the 3.5mm output on my laptop. I used my mobile phone with Theo's KA11 dongle, largely because it doesn't have a 3.5mm output. I tried my Mission 778X amplifier, and then I finally finished off by trying Theo's excellent K11 R2R dedicated headphone DAC and amplifier. Now I mainly use Qobuz and used a vast array of tracks. I also did a little bit of gaming with them as well. And one of the things I also want to mention is that I did have several work at home days where I had them on for quite a few hours at a time. Design wise, I may have said that the Headphone D1s don't dazzle or stand out, but musicality and sound quality wise, they most certainly do. Now it wasn't the first track I tried, but it was certainly one of the first tracks I tried, which was Jeff Beck's Hallelujah. And right at the beginning of that track, you'll know it, it has an exhale, he sighs before the guitar kicks in. And I was really taken aback just by that sigh. Like, it just sounded different to me. There was a real intention and emotion portrayed by the headphones. And I found that even though I've heard that track thousands of times, it sounded different to me. And that happened time and time again as I went through my favourites and a lot of tracks on Qobuz. It's not just the sound quality though, it's not that you're just hearing the sound, it's almost like you're hearing how the sound was made. And what I mean by that is the leading edges are so distinct. So if a cymbal is being hit by the very top of the stick, you get a more thinner sound, and if it's being clanged, you get that throatier kind of ring. If a string's plucked a certain way, or you get a string rattle on an acoustic, it's all there. It's almost like additional metadata to the sound. And that's a great example of that is like on Coldplay's Fix You, and it's got that amazing crescendo in the middle of the track, and I was just really aware of how that ride cymbal was being struck in a different way. So it starts just with the tip of the stick and is just counting in, and then it builds and he starts really hitting it, and you just get that all portrayed, and it's excellent. That detail retrieval is right across the frequency spectrum as well, which is great. So bass is handled really, really well. And I think that's really important because on some systems and some speakers, bass can sound a little bit one-dimensional. It sort of hits a frequency and it's just kind of there. There's none of that with these headphones. Bass is really, really articulate. So a Mumford & Sons double bass sound is very, very distinct from an electric guitar bass. And in terms of the amount, if it's there on the recording, it's portrayed, and if it's not, it's not. They're very, very accurate. Now, one of the things we said about thin ply carbon, or Hedd were claiming, is that they were going to have a cleaner and agile sound. And certainly with electronic dance music, the timing was good and the transients are good. So if you get a hard hitting drop, that's really brought through nicely. And I have to say, there was so much information, particularly with dance music. In my mind's eye, I could almost picture the production software as the timeline was kind of going from left to right, because you can just hear right at the beginning as elements come into the musical picture and how they go. And I really, really enjoyed that presentation. Now, this leaning towards articulate and a detailed sound is perhaps not surprising because of Hedd Audio's background in studio and music production, because what you want a studio monitor to do is actually not get in the way of the sound, and you want it to reveal what's happening in your production so that you know what your production sounds like at that moment in the process. And these headphones do that exactly well. They bring that studio tonal quality to a pair of headphones. An area where the excellent articulation of the D1s is really good is when you use them for gaming. Now, I mentioned earlier there's no microphone. This isn't a gaming headset per se, so you're not going to be chatting to your friends. But if you're playing solo play and you're playing an excellent game like Hogwarts Legacy that's got a brilliant soundtrack on it, then you get a really immersive experience and you get a really good sense of positioning in the soundstage of the different elements. Now, Hedd said that they wanted this to be a consumer level focused product, and I said that I would try it on several different sources. The results of that are unsurprising really, and just like every kind of speaker, the more power you can give it normally yields better result, and that was certainly what I found. The FiiO K11 R2R headphone amplifier certainly sounded the best of the sources that I used. However, what I would say is I was really surprised at the level of performance from just the laptop or the mobile phone with the relatively inexpensive dongle. I would say that you can absolutely buy these headphones and have a good musical experience without any other ancillary equipment or expensive ancillary equipment, but you will be rewarded if you do so. So either put it on the agenda, or if you can get it at the same time, then do so, because you're in for a cracking result. If I was going to be picky, which I have to be, I would want a hint, and it is the merest hint of more warmth and refinement. There's plenty of detail and articulation. It's not to say that they're too sterile or clinical, but for me personally, just a bit more body, a bit more warmth. I would have preferred that, but it is ever so slight because these are a brilliant pair of headphones. So all good, right? Not quite. The not quite comes in the form of comfort. I would have preferred these to be slightly more comfortable. Certainly on the longer listening sessions I was aware of them, and there felt like there was a touch of pressure on the sides. And I was reflecting on this, and I did own a pair of Shure SRH 1840s for a time, and I never got that feeling with them. They were a bit more barely there. And I looked those up, and there's an 82 gram weight difference, and so perhaps that's a factor here. The thing is with headphones is the way they feel on everyone is all quite deeply personal. So these are so good, I would thoroughly recommend that you find a good retailer and check them out for yourself. While having the same material that you find in an F1 chassis and NASA's spaceship Ingenuity is a very cool talking point. I could imagine it wearing thin after a while. What won't wear thin is the quite brilliant, detailed and insightful sound that the HEDDphone D1 has. If you haven't heard of Hedd Audio before, but you're in the market at this level for a set of headphones, I seriously suggest that you put these into the mix. I'll be really sad to see them go when the courier comes to get them. I've really enjoyed my time with them. Thanks for watching this review. I've written a full review on the site for these headphones, so go check that out. And as always, give us a like and a subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.